Lenin, a black Gemara. We are in the middle of the discussion of the Mashruq Muhammad as to what exactly was said when they went out to wage a war against their enemies. So we had so far, there was a pep talk given that they shouldn't be intimidated by the Goyim. That was said by the Kohen Mashruq Muhammad to another Kohen, and that other Kohen voiced it. Then we have where the Kohen said things and it went through the Shaitim, the police. And then we're going to have the Yosra Shaitim, where the Shaitim said on their own. So we are up to now the Mishnah. The Dibru HaShaitim La'am Lamer. They now passed on a certain laws. Who are the exemptions? That is the Kohen using the voice piece of the Shaitim. So the last Mishnah was a Kohen using a Kohen. This is a Kohen using the Shaitim. And then when it said in the Pasuk of Yosra Shaitim, the next pep talk, that was given by the Shaitim themselves. It's a Mishnah. The to say the following me, who's the person that doesn't know how to didn't have chance to be mechanech, he should go back home. Now these people here are sort of, and the logic behind it is if they're constantly thinking, they cannot focus on the war because they're thinking about the new home, the new wife, the new business, and they're not focusing. And we need to be focused completely. But they go home, but they still only because they didn't yet mechanic, they didn't actually move in yet. And the Tag Management I think said that means didn't put a mezuzah on the door yet. So therefore they go back, but not home. They go back to they support the back lines, not the front lines, but the back lines. Whether you build a straw house, base a bucket of cattle, base a for wood, base a warehouse, whether you build, whether you bought, whether you inherited. The fact is for you, it's all new. Simcha is more or less the same. Even you were gifted. That's number one. Number two, the next exemption is you build a vineyard, and a vineyard means it's a certain way, 5 trees, 2 versus 2, and then one like a tail in the middle, or some say one on the right side. And you didn't have a chance the 4th year. The first 3 years is orlo, you cannot enjoy it at all. It's to eat of it, never know. In the 4th year, you take the crop with you, or you exchange it for money, you bring it with you to the Shalaim. You didn't have a chance to mechal it yet again, so you didn't really have a chance to benefit. It doesn't matter whether it's a vineyard, any other fruit-bearing trees, but it has to be 5, like the minimum size of a vineyard. The Vedas use the word vineyard. It's not a kedem. Any other min. Whether you planted, whether you take a branch and you take one of the branches protruding and you stick it the other end into the ground, and whether you're grafting it onto another tree. Still new. Whether you purchase the Yiddish Yashin gifted. And the third one is so you have house, business, marriage. And somebody marries a wife, whether you marry a girl for the first time, whether it's a pact for you, it's a simcha. I feel even just your brother-in-law. I feel your sister you're marrying. I feel you heard that your brother died in the war, because now she is zakuk to you, you already have connections. All of these, all of these were never heard. The word from the Kohen that organizes the war. But they still help out, but in the backs. Following do not go back. They still, because we don't believe the simcha is that great, and we don't believe that's a distraction. If you just build a gateway or a ksad or a porch or mapesed or a balcony, only 4 trees, 5 trees, but they're barren, so you can't bear any fruits. So you take back your own wife, or almana lekohen gadol, a widow to kohen gadol, things which are us. You shouldn't be married. This is a big problem. The Rambam passes in Hitler to be able that kohenim didn't go to war. So what are we talking about here? Exemptions about almana and a grusha chutz kohen hedjit if they didn't go to war. Maybe the way to explain it is maybe the way to explain it as follows. There's a big machakir. When we say that they don't go to war, these exemptions, does that mean that they're not allowed to go to war? They have to go home? Or it means that they have now an excuse. If they want to go home, they can go home. We trust them if they feel that they can really be focused on the war. And this is not a distraction, we'll let them go to war. Or do we say, no. You are not going to focus and you're going to be a bad influence on your other things. And people are putting their lives in your hands and we cannot trust you. So if you learn that these people here, what do you call it? Can go back can go back. So can go back. So a kohen, or maybe they have to, let's think it through. If they have to go back home because we don't want them to fight, then when the Rambam says that a kohen and a chalutz and everybody else, if they want to go, when it says that they don't go to war, they don't have conscription. There's no conscription by kohen. But if they voluntarily want to go to the war, they can. But in these cases, we're not going to allow them. That's maybe what how the Rambam will have the Mishnah, that everyone else is not allowed to go, is not allowed to go. They have to stay home. They have to go back home. A kohen is not conscripted into the army, but they can voluntarily go to the army. But the kohen gadol or this in this situation are not allowed to go because forget about focus. They're not going to have the protection.
So not going to war only means not fighting. So would these people be allowed to peel potatoes for the people that fight?
He doesn't talk about that. He just says they should go to the army. Whether they did supply chain at the Kohanim, I don't remember. They can't. Don't remember. I'm saying so because they don't have the protection of Eibishter. They're living in sin. How is Eibishter going to protect them? Bas Yisrael, the mamzer on the sin. These
historic Jewish war. You go to
exactly. So these people, these are not excuses. Sorry, these are not exemptions to go back home because we are happy if marriage falls apart, but they shouldn't be married in the first place. Rabbi Yehuda says if you build a house and establish it exactly the way it originally was, you didn't do anything new, you didn't add anything to it. Just like we have a big machlekes and loy chayzik, wouldn't go back home. The Rambam in Krishna Mishnah and this Mishnah says, and the Tanakhama disagrees. The Tanakhama says if you rebuild a house, seems exactly the same. It's still a simcha, and if you can go back home. But in our Mishnah, we don't find the Tanakhama. However, it was a machlekes Rashi places in Shabbos and the Mems, where if at least on Shabbos, if you break the mal or something in order to rebuild, then you're chayiv because it's considered constructive, not destructive. So the machlekes is, does it have to be better than what was there originally? In other words, according to one opinion, when is it called building? Only if it's better. If it's exactly what it was before, that's not called building. And we will be the exact same machlekes here. Oh, but Shabbos you need constructive. It's not constructive. But what did you do? You rebuilt exactly what you had before. So that's the machlekes here also, whether it's considered a binyan or not. That's why anyone associating it, but for it. Rabbi Lezer is and even build a house on a certain, like in a floodplain. If you build a house in a floodplain, every few years you'll be flooded and you have to rebuild again. So if you build a house in this area over here, it never lasted. You have to build it twice every 7 years. It's not called a house, and therefore obviously you knew from the outset, like the people in America where they build houses in the path of tornadoes. Every 3 years, tornadoes. Yeah, exactly. Kansas, Kentucky, all these places. They also don't go back because you're know that it's here today and gone tomorrow. But the following people, see the first group of people, they go to the front, they hear what the kohen has to say, then they go back and they're still working in the army. However, the following people, they don't move from the place. They don't go to the front. You built the house and you mechanech it. Not a kerem v'chalolek. You planted a vineyard and you were mechalet, so now you have to reap the benefits. Otherwise, you want me to concentrate on your war. You married, not just got engaged. You married and it says you should be Noki, you should spend time with your family 1 year. And then it pops up and the Baal HaTurim says this simach is Gemata 364, because the only night you're not allowed to have any interest with your wife is on Yom Kippur. So the other 364 nights, the simach is Ishtay. And so the first year you be based, big machlekes and the chinuch and others, if the wife is meichel the husband and says, you can go to business trips, you can go. Is it hers to be meichel, or there's some kind of a din in the Torah whether she's meichel or not meichel, it doesn't matter. Are we doing it for her benefit, or are we doing it because this is the Torah that says how you start a marriage? You have to spend the whole time together first year. So Bidash as follows. Lid base is a base, it's a house. Yiyah is a karma, that's a business. The simachlicha zu ishtay ashalokach, this is the wife, he took lohavi as yibemtay. Ashalokach, including your rental. There's a famous question on the Rambam that everybody asks. The Rambam says, the Gemara says later, in the order of the Torah. First you have a house, then you have a business, bayis, kedem, isha. But the Rambam writes in Hilchos Deis, first you have a business, then you have a house, and then you have a thing. And everybody asks, the Rambam's fakir. And al-Khayda, the Rambam is basing on this part of the Mishnah right here. We take the pasuk, Noki Yir lebeisa shana achaz, Yir is business, and Beisa is house, and afterwards is wife. Clearly, in this mission, if you follow this pasuk, you're right. You follow the other psukim, the order is biased and thing. And you know why the Rambam says follow the mission right here? Clear where the Rambam is getting it from. I don't know why nobody brings it, but you know why the psukim says the other way around? Because we're talking about business the fourth year. That means you had to plant it 4 years ago, which really means you started your business before your house, but you don't go back from the army until the fourth year of the business. So and you get married at 18. You don't get married 4 years before. So and the house you would have bought, sometime in between. And logic is first you have to have money to buy a house. How do you get a house without money? So you have a business, and the parents' bank not always has money. So therefore, you have a business, then you have a house, and then you get married. So this is the base of the Rambam right here. Okay. They don't have to support the army at all. They stay home and do their thing. That the shaitim speak, they say their own, compose their own drushes. Because it says the yos shaitim later on. There's a third trench where the shaitim add their own. They say their own thing. The kohen tells them what to say. Okay, it says how's it work? Shaitim are the loudspeaker for these dinim right here in this Mishnah here. The shaitim is the one who voiced it. Another say kohen voices. The shaitim composes his own drush. By her case, it would work out very simple. The previous Mishnah gives that first pep talk and you should be scared of tarts and all that. That was a kohen speaking via kohen. The Vedibra of Yasu and all this Mishnah here, all these dinim, that is the kohen via shaitim. These are rules already. For the pep talk, you have to, bolster the people's confidence. That and that was done by a kohen, a higher level. Here, Pasha the dinim, the police of the officers of the court, they're the ones who relay them the messages. And then the last pep talk, and so on and so forth. That's a shaitim. If you gifted it more than high notes included. Anybody built a house. Ain't buys a house. These other things like weird houses and all that. Any house. Any house, and even the porch as well. It has to be similar to a house. My bias are suitable to living quarters because it's built in a permanent ways. Even a warehouse is suitable. Also something suitable. I just saw recently, or emails, how they take containers now and they just transform them into houses.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Then if you want to place out in the mountains or something, you just connect the plumbing and the electricity and they deliver it on the truck.
Yeah, the idea that people can't afford a house. This costs a tenth of the price of a house. Okay. Rabbi Ben Yaakov says bayis kemashmoy, literally. Means only a house, limited to a house, nothing else. Now, there's an interesting thing that Yerushalmi says that only a house in Eretz Yisrael is considered a house, not others. So the Mogen Avraham Paskas and Simon Tov Kuf Samach around there. He says that if you build a house in Chutz La'aretz, you don't make the Chanukas Abayis because it's not a simcha. Yet, if I remember, because Sam Sefer brought down in Pishka Tshuva there or somewhere else, can't remember where. He said that no, that while we're here in Golus, we have to live comfortably, and especially I see that your soul is passion b'chalarotza, so therefore there isn't any machlok sabayis.
Why do we have to make a zechel of and then you leave a amalama that you don't finish properly with the house?
Why? Because you can't be full simcha. Because we learn about mass. You can't be kindness around it.
According to the Bible, a lot of simcha.
Yeah, but there's one thing not having simcha. Another thing is making sure that the simcha is marked as well. The little simcha that you have, it is a simcha, but it's not a simcha that anyone would. Anyway, we all do chuluk sabayis over here. Okay, talking anything that chuluk sabayis means putting on a mezuzah. That's the chuluk sabayis. Okay, talking about further. Loi Chana, it could have said he didn't let the word mechanech. What's it? Not the gazman. If a guy stole a house, he can't use that as an excuse. Look, I'm a ganef and I stole a house. I want to go home. I need this pasuk to teach me that. The eat of we'll learn tomorrow. If he did one minishkal avena, I told you it says that he spoke between two shayad and two shayad. then you're no longer autonomy. So if you're Ganef, no, the Chiddush here is,
Don't we say karka and zealous?
yeah, but if you even so, you're right. But if Karka zealous means legally, but you threw the Kai out, so like, and you moved exactly. I feel the of the Lily. He goes over sugar. Also, it could be one of these containers. It could be one of these containers, these mobile homes. Aveda should be Yodai. Like we have by Sukkah. How do you steal a Sukkah? Aveda should be Yodai. So you say anyway, he has to go home because he didn't Aveda. I feel the Lily. If you go to Avad Shubi, did Shubi. So as far as Aveda is concerned, he's all right. The Yodami, he repaid the person. Oh, so why Taki can't? Why Taki can't go home? Because he's a purchaser. A ganif with the tshuva and pay and forcibly paid. He's the tshuva. The leather keeping the live because it came into his possession in an illicit way. Therefore, we frown upon this. Me is not a kedem. If somebody planted a kedem, tell them what we learned. And there's a whole discussion in the poskim. What happens? Somebody made a neder, I'll never buy this house, and then he bought the house. I'll never step in the house, and then he bought the house, and then he went to a rav to be matzah neder, mafreya. Is it considered as if it came into his hand illicitly, so he didn't go back home? Or do we say because it's bottle of mafreya, as if he never made it in the first place?
So when
No, when he bought the house, it was still us because he did not suspend that net. He didn't know it. He knows it afterwards, but then it's retroactive. So, but the fact is, they want to use the expression "asali yodei be'isa." It came at the time be'isa. How far does retroactivity go? Does it, okay, that it was never stolen, but does that mean that he never did an aveda?
From when is he required to pay the tax on the house?
Does he have to do tshuva for that? Another question is, does he have to do tshuva in this case? Because or not? Because he was never aveda in the first place. We did have a case where the woman thought that she still had an and yet she defied it. Which Taka did not do an aveda, and yet we say he has to do tshuva. Here, he did an aveda which has ma'isa, but then afterwards it became retrospective. They didn't. I should not angry and not be planted. Look, if he got it in any other way, he's still simcha. It's an extra person. We need the word each for. I should not again angry. Only a vineyard. The 5 trees of food. I feel a mission meaning from any not only vineyard but any kind of fruit. But I should not. As long as it's I should not take kerem, we put a stop at the word not of any plant. So even 4 trees. If it's not a kerem, then nata is 4 trees or 3 trees, or Chameshalon is Sadak, or any, it's not a kedem. Talmud make kedem, not a kedem. So we divide the 2 words, we separate the 2 words, and then we bring them together. Make kedem, he puts together, the juxtaposition together, not a kedem, limited to kedem. It says lechilul. Why is it lechilul? Again, the same question we have by Chanochai. Prat lemavrich comes to exclude this price. It's a lechilul. Lechilul. I could have said lechilul. So this opinion says that this comes to exclude if you didn't plant it, but rather that and you were able to redeem the 4th year net to the vine. Prat comes to exclude a mavrich or a market. It's exactly the opposite mission. We just let the mission say what a market. A market is grafting, and mavrich is you take one of the branches and you plant it in the ground and it bears new fruits now. So what we have to try to explain the discrepancy here between the Braisa and our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that Mavrich and Markiv is an exemption, and the Braisa that isn't. So it depends. If what your hakava is iser, what you grab, for example, like kalayim, that it's forbidden, different meaning. If you and we'll see what this is, if hakava is iser, kan hakava's head, and here's what hakava's head. Our Mishnah says that you go home as if you do markiv, you graft it in a way that's mutter. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? You took a young branch and you grafted it onto a tree that's a young branch, so that tree also is chayiv and orla and what do you call it? And that's the vine. Just like the branch you added on. So take it by my head. Who cares about what you grafted on? The reason why you have to mechal it because the tree itself, sapling, and the young tree you grafted it on. What happened was there was an old tree already passed by the 4 years. Beside the tree itself, you don't have to bring it to the shrine anymore. But this new branch that you grafted on, and now this new branch grafted on has its own, is nurturing the fruit itself from this branch, and the tree is nurturing it. So that's called zev goyim. And you have to it has the name of Orla and that's in the back. It says the Gemara. That actually he's that Babu said that no, that when Zev is a goyim, we say that the main tree it takes over, and you are pater from bringing it to the Shalim in this case. what's this thing here that you're potter because you have to be mechal? No, you don't. The ain't bought din arla. There's no laws of arla. I'm gonna be even loyal. I'm talking about yalda, a young, a branch in the sapling. Okay, going to not allow the first tree you build, the original tree, the one that you're grafting onto, was not built for fruits. It was built because there was a breach in the fence, and you planted a tree where that breach was, so that it should fill that hole. Or the courage, you planted a tree, you wanted the wood for beams. And in that case, now we learned how to tailor. So the original tree is part of an arla. By grafting on this little branch, you chayv and only go home. The Gemara, Maishna Yalda came the bottle. Why you tell me Yalda came the bottle? Because that's a major tree. Because there was a goyim. The fact is that this original tree is potted from Netzavai. So the new branch should also be potted from the right, because the new branch is much smaller than the original tree. Because there was a goyim, and should be potted. She says, Hashem there. In the case of the old tree, there's no way they can ever bring it to a chiv of Netzavai. It's 10 years old, the tree already. It's impossible. Even if you change your mind, lav bas medi. There's nothing you can do. You can't change your mind. You can never start Arl again. Here, in this case where the sapling is, okay, you want it for this wood. What happens in the middle of growing is, you know what, I like the fruits. It looks like nice fruits. I want it for fruit tree. It automatically changes the purpose of this tree, and this tree now has the dinim of Arla and clay. And that's right. Bas medri, why? Because this tree could have been suitable for fruits. You can always change your mind. So it's because it has a potential to be chayiv, a net to the vai. If you add on a branch that is chayiv net to the vai, it retains a chayiv. It doesn't lose its own chiyuv. It grows by itself. Same thing, grew by itself. You had no intention whatsoever for the fruit. You just grew. You have to chayiv and arla and all of these things. Now we learned chayav and arla. So Gemara said, why don't we just answer simply? It's a vineyard that belongs to two partners. And therefore, of course, the vineyard that belongs to two partners, that is why, what do you call it? That you're chayiv. Says the Gemara, why do you have to come up with a story that you took why don't you just say that the branch belongs to one person and the tree belongs to somebody else? So even though the tree might have already fulfilled their mitzvah, whatever it is, but the two partners now are saying, therefore you're chayiv. Okay, so the tree belongs to Reuben, this branch belongs to Shimon, they agree to become partners, and that's since the Shimon's branch is chayiv and net to the back. Simple. The Gemara, no. The high hundred day, the high hundred day. When you're partners in every single inch. And because you're partners in every single millimeter, you're partner. I'm going to pop it. Doesn't matter. If it belongs to two people, I guess the simcha is much less. And you don't go back from the war. Maishna, why should it be different by Yavama? We just said before the Mishnah, if you found out your brother died, so we're in a war, all the brothers, and also because each one has a zika until one of them goes forward. Hasam zika means they already have a connection. Each one can say, "This is my wife." At least with the Rabbanan, the zika there, because each one is entitled to give a get, and when you give a get, that's it. You're no longer yivama. Then you have to have yuchlitzah. Nobody can say this is my kedem. Over there, they're not considered shutfin in this woman. Each one is a potential husband. So each one can say, this is my wife exclusively. But the wife is only exclusive. Mashen came by kedem, by shutfin, there's no exclusivity here. Nobody can say karmoy. That's one answer. I'm not going to give another answer to the statement of the Mishnah, but what you did was you grafted a tree onto a vegetable. And the following Tana, the Tanya it's not considered kalayim, even though they're two separate species altogether. There's a vegetable, there's a tree. And now, and by a vegetable, there's no din of arla and there's no din of netzavai. That's why in our Mishnah you go back, because what you grafted on is our Mishnah. The author of our Mishnah is Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, in the name of Yehuda ben Gamliel ish Karaku, and therefore you go back. And V'chama you say V'chama aser. He also that's the brayse that you're not allowed to. The Gemara says, and therefore you don't use an excuse to go back. The author is Ablezna Yaakov, the one that says that the exception, the brayse is Ma'avrich Markiv is Ablezna Yaakov. Why? Who? Ablezna Yaakov says that only vineyard, that's it, only grinds. Just like by Kedem, Rabbi Yaakov says it has to be mamish of vineyard, nothing else. When it says nata is kamashmoy, only planting, noitea in mavrich markiv loy, only he takes everything in the Torah literally. Loiteya means dafka, not to kerem, not to mean planted, not grafting and so on. Kiosaf dimi or layering. Kiosaf dimi Amar Rabbi Yechim Mishra Blazman Yaakov. Yalda talking about Rabbi Yaakov, he said Yalda pchusamatevach hayev is barla. If you have this little tree, a bush, it never grows higher than a tefach, then you always have an arla from Marasayin. Koshner said, people think that this has just been planted, and therefore you can never, and Marasayin is a problem. Interesting. Only if it looks like a vineyard, you have 5 trees in that particular way. But if it's like a Koli Isla, but if let's say the entire, you have a large, which is a minimum of 10 trees, you have a large vineyard, and none of them grow higher than a tefach, then everyone knows about this. It's weird. It'll be in the Guinness Book of Records, and then so therefore there's no Marasayin anymore. So this is all about Marasayin.
It's interesting because they seem to decide that once it's public knowledge, they're not concerned about the sign anymore.
Sorry?
Once it's public knowledge, it's not a big deal. There's nothing big gossip.
That's true.
Because everyone knows it anyway.
Rashi brings here a halacha, which everybody wonders. He brings on brach, but he says that there's no din of urla by a single tree. It's a big chiddush. Rashi says in Rashi Koli Isa, the last line, Rashi says she'ein urla noheges matia achas ela bekerem shalom. One plant there's no din of urla only if you have a whole vineyard, which is an interesting halacha. Anyway, mace has 4 amas for Krishma. What do you mean? That you're not allowed to read Krishma within 4 amas of a cave. That you're poking fun that they can't and you are. So within 4 amas, you shouldn't be taunting them. That's why you don't have your titties out. That's why you don't tell if you have a stepsister, there's your father married another woman and there's another girl in the house, let's say, or from or he married a woman and second wife, she brought a girl into the house. He says grows between the brothers. One of the other brother, they're totally not related, shouldn't marry because everyone thinks that she's a sibling, and the brother's marrying a sister. It appears as if it's a sister. So it's definitely halachically it's not correct, and the reason is everyone knows that it's adopted or it's a stepdaughter, and therefore it's not really a sister. A that a poor person took, and he took a lot of lekachik. Now he has a whole granary or silo of his own, and it looks like people think that it looks like he has his own field. They're abundant. He has to now give meiser. Lekachik part of a meiser, but no, he has to give meiser. And why is that? Because people think again Marasayin. Only in the field of the year, but if it's in the city, then Kuli again. There's no Marasayin if everybody's aware. Everybody saw him go back and forth. He must have been working very hard just to amass such a large amount. If you have a little branch that's less than a tefach, if you talk about klaya kenny, not allowed to mix wheat, let's say, with vines. But if it's so it's insignificant, it never grows higher than a tefach, that's not called a problem for Ola. That's what we're talking about if it's the minimum size of a vineyard. But if it's a full size of a vineyard, and that's how they are, they're very low, then it's chashuv and it is makadish, it is makdish. Okay, we'll stop over here and we'll continue tomorrow.